We are back looking at some rookie ADPs, and we're going to look at obviously the post-draft ADP, but we're going to compare that to the pre-draft ADP and even the pre-combine ADP to see a real lay of the land of how far these rookies have come along. Before we get into it, please, thank you so much for joining. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. It really, really does help. And hey, we're running a competition to get access to Dave Wrights Amazing Player Database. Just contains loads of data about anything you need to know for fantasy football, about every single player. All you got to do to enter, make sure you're subscribed, and either send me a screenshot or for this video only, leave a comment just saying, I'm in. That's it. You'll be entered right away. So just say, if you want to be in, say, I'm in the comment section down here. And hey, leave a thumbs up while you're at it. Why not? So let's dive right into these rookie ADPs. I want to start. We're not too much to say about this, right? Bijan Robinson, he was number one post-draft. He was number one in that little gap in between, the combine and the draft. And he was number one pre-combine. We don't have too much to say about Bijan. He's absolutely amazing. All right. Next, quite surprising this actually. I thought maybe would have started to slip and we would have seen Anthony Richardson creep up to this position number 2. Not quite yet, but he's getting there, I think. I wouldn't be surprised to see him there eventually. CJ Stroud sits there at the minute. He's in ADP number 2, and he was 3 and 3 before that, in that gap between the combine and the draft and also pre-combine. I think Stroud is going to be mostly going around, 2-3 kind of area. And yeah, Bryce Young, he's at 3. They've kind of flipped around. It seems to be personal preference at this stage if you're going to take one or the other. I prefer CJ Stroud because of, the potential of what he can do with his legs over Bryce Young, but it's a bit of a pick 'em, to be honest. And here's the first kind of surprise. We see Anthony Richardson not really moving up in ADP, although, to be honest, I have seen it happen a lot where he does go 2 overall, but at the moment, based on, 7, 8 mock drafts that I've surveyed, including ones I've done with guests, he's still sitting at ADP position number 4, the same position he was in between the combine and the draft. He was at 9 pre-combine, so you can see just how far Anthony Richardson has come. I know it's only 5 spots, but in that first round, it's hard to move up even 1 spot. So I can see that rise continuing to happen. And we got Jackson Smith, we don't have Jackson Smith and Jig, but we got Jahmyr Gibbs, who has moved up now to 5, sort of. Before that little bit in between the combine and the draft, he was at 6. Pre-combine, he was sitting at number 4. Gibbs, pretty good option there at 5. And here's JSN. He's been consistent as well. A lot of these guys at the top, very consistent. You can see at 6, 5, and 5. Not too much to say about these guys, to be honest. Same with Jordan Addison. Consistently in that 7 spot or the 6 spot before the combine happened. I don't think there's any shocks there. He's going to go most places there. Same with Quentin Johnson, right? He's been hovering around that 8, that 9 spot. That's probably where he's going to go in your league. So don't be shocked to see him go there. Now we've got the first kind of real interesting riser, and there's a couple of these coming up. The first one is Zay Flowers. Now this might shock a lot of you. He started off pre-combine all the way down ADP 17. Then he rose up after the combine to 10 and has moved up again to position number 9, sort of asserting himself in that first round. Now, does that worry you that before we had the combine, people were a little bit worried about Zay Flowers? Maybe it's because of the smaller school. People thought he's not going to get that draft capital. He might not do as well at the combine. But yeah, the fact that people had him ranked all the way down at 17 before the draft, that's not nothing. So remember that whenever you are drafting at 9. Are you going to go with this wide receiver Zay Flowers, or is there someone with more upside? Somebody like Devon Achane, right, who's all the way now up at 10. He's risen up nice and slowly. Pre-combine, 19. Post-combine, 16. Then hits the mother load in the draft going to the Miami Dolphins. He's all the way up at 10 now. Kind of what we predicted on the show that was going to happen to him. And Tajay Spears, we kind of predicted would rise up. And that seems to have happened. And Achane going in the first round at the minute. Does he have more upside than Zay Flowers? Probably, right? But the same thing. Does that 16, does that 19 worry you? That's where people had in place before that landing spot. How much do you weigh in landing spot? Actually, put that in the comments. If you've not already said, I'm in, put in the comments. What do you think about landing spot? Should it have this much of a swing? 9 spots? from the pre-combine era. Who knows? Let me know what you think. Next up, we got Will Levis. Will Levis been up and down. Was inside that top 10, started off at 7. He's kind of going backwards a little bit. 11. I've seen him go a lot later than 11 as well, but I think that's about right for a guy that could actually be the starter going forward for his team. So Will Levis sitting there at 11 currently. Then a huge riser, much to, my annoyance. This is going to be my sleeper, my guy. Dalton Kincaid. Man, pre-combine, 22. You could snag him at the back of the second round. Absolute bargain. Not happening anymore, folks. In between the combine and the draft, he was going to 15. Then he lands at the Buffalo Bills, and he's a first-round player at the minute. He seems the kind of guy that, you pick it at 12. You won the league last year, presumably. You're adding Dalton Kincaid to your team. Really does strengthen it. Yeah, I think he's a really good pick at the back end of the first round. And if it's tight end premium, forget about it. This guy has to go inside the top 10, I think, if it's tight end premium. After, interestingly enough, we got Zach Charbonnet. Now, I've seen an overcorrection on Charbonnet in a lot of places, but actually it's rounded out to about what you would expect. The guy goes from 10 to 11 to 13, so he is going backwards, but he is very, very talented. People saying, Kenny Walker is going to smash him and beat him out. But, Kenneth Walker, let's not forget, they didn't take Kenneth Walker, as high as Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs. He was the second-round pick, just like Zach Charbonnet. So if you're looking at the draft capital, very, very similar draft capital. They could end up with very, very similar roles. Charbonnet I like a little bit more as a pass catcher as well, actually, than Kenneth Walker. So he could definitely carve himself out that third down role for sure. And maybe they're just trying to take it easy with Kenny Walker. Don't want him getting hurt, right? Next up, look at this. This is the most bizarre looking scorecard. You can see it's Kendre Miller, who went pre-combine at 20. After the combine, fell all the way down to 33. Get him in the third round. Now he's all the way up at 14. People love them from Kendre Miller at the minute. I did talk about, before it wouldn't be a shock for me if Kendre Miller ends up going before Zach Evans, just the way they played at TCU. I'm glad that has happened. I think he's a more talented running back. But is 14 a little bit rich for Kendre Miller? You're kind of banking on Alvin Kamara not playing, right? And then they've also got Williams, who's going to hoover up those touchdowns, because why would you sign the record touchdown scorer in a single season not to get him to run at the goal line? So Kendre Miller, while he is a very talented player, I'm actually a little bit surprised that his landing spot has moved him up. I guess it's the draft capital that people are happy with. But yeah, I'm actually a little bit worried about him at the Saints, but worth taking a punt on for sure. And if Kamara does miss time, then yeah, you're absolutely loving that for Kendre Miller. And next up, Mr. Consistent, Michael Mayer. No one's shocked to see him around here. I was shocked to see him being the third tight end coming off the board, but we haven't really seen an over-adjustment of people taking Sam Laporta ahead of Michael Mayer. I think that is correct. So Michael Mayer going at 15 seems about right to me. We all know Jimmy G loves him a tight end, so Michael Mayer could end up being the number 2 target in that offense. I suppose number 3 maybe behind Josh Jacobs as well, but he's got a role to carve out for sure, Michael Mayer. And oh my God, this guy, look at this, an NA. Nobody drafted this guy. See, before the combine, I didn't see a single person take this guy in any kind of draft. It's just not there. Then, in between the combine and the draft, he finished as ADP 39. Now he's all the way up at 16. This is a massive red flag, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is entirely based on, where he went and the landing spot as well, which is pretty good. I'm going to try and avoid this guy, actually, Mingo, in my draft, just because he's risen so much based on draft capital and landing spot that this seems like a guy that people have, made a mistake on in that organization at the Panthers. I think he could be a guy to avoid, especially at 16, because I think there's so many more players available around here that I would take ahead of Mingo. I think he got drafted because of his size, and he's not really that big either. I mean, what is he, 6'1"? Yeah, he's just kind of lucky that he fall in this class. If he was coming out next year with these giants coming through, he wouldn't be sniffing 16 at all. So I'm going to avoid Mingo unless, someone changes my mind. It might be you. Let me know in the comments. Why should I be taking him? Next up, one of the guys that everybody was talking about. It's Marvin Mims, ladies and gentlemen. Marvin Mims, Started off at 24 pre-combine, then is sat around this 18, 17 mark after. I really like Marvin Mims. I love the landing spot. Really happy taking him at this ADP for sure. Next up, hey, Rashee Rice. Look how much you've come along, buddy, right? Started at 25, then went 31. Bit of a dip post-combine, but then he goes to Texas. He starts catching balls from Patrick Mahomes. He ends up on the Kansas City Chiefs. And as we know with Sky Moore, that's going to raise your draft capital. He's up at 18. I don't hate it. I don't love it. But, you got to factor in Patrick Mahomes. I think people have maybe learned a lesson last year from Sky Moore. Sky Moore was going, back end of the first round last year. We haven't seen the same kind of boom with Rashee Rice. I think because of that, is there a slight over-adjustment based on Sky Moore? Perhaps. But I actually think this is about right. You may as well take a flyer midway through the second on Rashee Rice and hope that he pairs nicely with Patty Mahomes. And next up, a guy that's fallen, pardon the pun, fallen down quite a lot. Pre-combine 11, post-combine 12, post-draft 19. Josh Downs did not get the draft capital. Got a pretty good landing spot, though. But is he a best ball guy? Maybe. Might be a best ball guy. It could be hard to trust week in, week out. But then again, new quarterback, probably going to keep it short and simple. Josh Downs could carve himself out a role. And again, at 19, I'm happy taking a flyer on him. And here's another guy that's had a bit of a rocky time of it. We have Tank Bigsby, who started off pre-combine, 15 overall. People loving themselves from Tank Bigsby. Fell down a little bit and now is back up around 20. The more I think about the Jacksonville landing spot, the more I'm like, okay, him and ETN could be a nice combo paired together. So it could be really interesting to see what they do. And I think Bigsby will definitely carve himself out some kind of role. We've seen James Robinson before he got traded actually playing pretty well for the Jags. And I'm taking a pretty sizable chunk of that workload. I think Bigsby's a better player than James Robinson. So you would assume he'll get himself some opportunities. Not drafting him just to sit and wonder if ETN's going to get injured. They're going to draft him to play. Speaking about playing, a guy that might not be doing much of it, at least the first year, Tyjae Spears. He stayed consistent around this 20 mark. I think he's so talented. People are worried about his ACL, but, as Matt from the Wildcard crew said, hey, if you don't have an ACL, you can't tear an ACL, right? So there is that, I suppose, but I feel okay about taking Spears here. He's the kind of player that's there. This is why taxi squads exist. You'll take him, you put him on your taxi squad, maybe next year he'll do something, or maybe in 2 years' time, or whenever Derrick Henry finally starts falling apart, that's whenever he'll do something. But not a guy for the here and now, I wouldn't say, Tyjae Spears. And next up, Hendon Hooker, start off at 23, rose for a bit to 17, and goes to the Detroit Lions. What is he, 2 years younger than Jared Goff and is meant to be the successor? Bit odd. It does offer some more athleticism than Jared Goff does for sure, but I don't see him beating Jared Goff out. I'm going to be honest. I think Jared Goff's, pretty underrated. He had a pretty good season last year. I think he'll bring the Detroit Lions to the playoffs this year, and he's not going to lose his job after he brings a team to the playoffs for the first time in who knows how long. So I'd be waiting on Hooker a little bit. He might not get much chance to see the field. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens with Jared Goff's contract as well. And coming in at 23, Roschon Johnson. He seems a guy I'm willing to take a chance on here. That could be a nice split backfield over at the Bears with him and Khalil Herbert at 23, back end of the second. I think this is pretty good value. And here's another guy that flew up the rankings thanks to landing spot. The second tight end taken off the board, Sam Laporta. Pre-draft 35, post-draft 29, now up to 24. I've seen people taking him way earlier as well, which, you are welcome to do. And then tight end premium, yeah, probably a good idea. There are question marks. If he gets the ball in his hands, he's an absolute weapon. However, when he's being pressed, the guy does struggle a little bit. So whether teams are going to recognize that when they're playing Detroit, or are they going to be too concerned with the other weapons they have, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs. Hopefully Sam Laporta can be schemed open a little bit, because he's an absolute weapon with the ball in his hands, much like a lot of that Detroit Lions teams. And that brings us to the end of the second round. You may be thinking, hey, Mags, where are these guys? Here's some guys that didn't make it, some huge falls, right? We'll get rid of Sam Laporta, and let's bring up these huge falls. Starting off, your Keyshawn Butte, who was ranked 14 pre-combine, then 23 does not appear on this list. Jalen Hyatt, 18, then rose to 14, does not appear on this list. I mean, I've been loads of Jalen Hyatt in the third round in rookie mocks and rookie drafts. Got Zach Evans. This shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone who listens to the show. We kind of did predict that Zach Evans is not a second-round talent. We wondered what was happening with him being taken over Kendrick Miller when Miller kind of outshined him. And then, of course, he can't get on the field because of Judkins last year. So not too shocked. And then Sean Tucker obviously has some medical issues. But he was, look at that, up at 12 pre-draft, a first-round player that you can get probably in, what, the fourth round at the moment, if that, which is crazy. So analyze over this all you want. Look at the numbers, look at who's come, how far, look at who's risen, look at who's fallen, and decide for yourself, actually, who's a guy here that I might be avoiding, maybe like a Mingo, or who's a guy here that actually I think the plummet is so big that there's a lot of value there now, like maybe a Josh Downs, right? So where do you fall? Who do you think has risen too high? Who has fallen too low? Let me know in the comments. And remember, either send me a screenshot on Twitter, right here. Look, Hot Seat Mag, see it right there. Send me that. Or for a shortcut, hit the like button and comment, I'm in. And you're in the draw, ready to win a prize of Dave Wrights database. It is an absolutely amazing prize. And as always, thank you for joining. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell if you want. I don't care about the bell, I'm not going to lie. Hit the bell if you want, though. That'll be absolutely fantastic. And until next time, guys, remember, for anything Dynasty you want to know, keep it locked on the Certified Inferno. And we'll see you later.